Johnny Depp fans are in tears after this devastating new update. Just hours ago, producer Jerry Bruckheimer spoke out about Pirates of the Caribbean 6 and confirmed that Johnny's return as Jack Sparrow is actively being planned. "If it's up to me, he'll be in it," Bruckheimer said in the exclusive that dropped today. After years of silence and uncertainty, the words hit like a wave. Fans who waited through every rumor and setback are flooding social media with the same reaction. Some are crying from pure relief. Others from the weight of finally hearing the character they love might sail again. The update is real. The emotion is real. And the story behind why this moment lands so hard is what we need to talk about right now. The confirmation from Jerry Bruckheimer lands at a moment when so many people who have followed Johnny Depp for decades find themselves sitting quietly with their phones and feeling that familiar tightness in the chest that comes when something long hoped for finally receives a clear public voice. Bruckheimer did not speak in vague, hopeful terms. He stated directly that Johnny's return as Jack Sparrow is being planned, and that if the decision rests with him, the character will be present. The words themselves are simple, yet the weight they carry for fans who lived through the years of silence and shifting studio statements is anything but light. People are posting videos of themselves wiping their eyes while replaying the clip. Others are writing long notes about the first time they saw the block pearl sail across a theater screen and how that same sense of wonder still sits inside them. The reaction is not manufactured excitement. It is the slow release of tension that built across nearly a decade of waiting. Johnny himself has never been one to chase public validation. In past interviews, he has spoken about the work itself being the point and about characters that feel alive rather than constructed for applause. Those who have watched him move from Edward Scissorhands to the Mad Hatter to Jack Sparrow recognize the same careful attention to detail that turns a role into something people carry with them long after the credits roll. The Pirates films became more than summer blockbusters for many. They became shared language, a raised eyebrow, a slightly drunken swagger, a line delivered with perfect timing that still makes strangers smile at each other in grocery store lines. When the fifth film arrived and then the long stretch of quiet followed, the questions never fully left. Would the character return? Would the man who created him be allowed to step back into those boots? The legal chapter that played out in open court became public record, and the verdicts themselves are facts that cannot be rewritten. Johnny was awarded damages, the jury made its findings, yet the professional aftermath left a space where new major studio work moved slowly. He continued working Minamata, Jeanne de Barry, the independent film he directed, smaller projects that kept the craft alive. Then the announcement of Ebenezer arrived, a dark reimagining of A Christmas Carol, directed by T. West, with Johnny taking on the title role. The first trailer dropped during Comic-Con week, and the transformation was complete. Gray, curly hair, prosthetic nose, the familiar sharp intelligence behind the eyes of a character who has lived too long with his own ghost. In the trailer, Johnny Scrooge looks straight at the camera and says it is good to be back. The line is short. The delivery is quiet. Yet fans who have waited for any major studio signal heard it as both character and person speaking at once. The surprise appearance on the streets of San Diego in full costume only deepened the feeling. People who had dressed as Jack Sparrow or the Mad Hatter found themselves face to face with the actor who originated those roles, now fully inside another. The crowd reacted with a mixture of laughter and sudden silence that happens when something unexpected and genuine appears in front of them. No long speech, no grand declaration, just the work and the presence. That same presence is what makes the Bruckheimer update feel so heavy right now. It is not a signed contract. It is not a release date. It is a producer who has steered every previous Pirates film, stating openly that the plan includes Johnny and that his own preference is clear. For fans who have watched every rumor cycle rise and fall, the difference between speculation and a named producer speaking on record is enormous. The tears some are describing are not theatrical. They come from the accumulation of small, private moments. The teenager who first saw the film and felt less alone, the adult who returned to the movies during hard seasons and found the same character still able to make them laugh, the parent who introduced the films to their own children and watched the same delight appear. Those threads run through thousands of individual lives, and when a public figure of Bruckheimer's position finally says the character is being planned with its original actor, the collective feeling moves from hope into something closer to recognition. Johnny has always worked with a kind of quiet intensity that does not require constant explanation. In older interviews, he has talked about the importance of listening to the character rather than imposing an idea of what the character should be. That approach is visible across the body of work. The small gestures, the way a single look can carry an entire emotional turn, the refusal to flatten a role into pure comedy or pure drama. When fans speak about why they remain attached, they rarely list box office numbers. They describe specific scenes that still live in memory. The moment Jack Sparrow first appears on the sinking boat, the quiet conversation between Edward and Kim in the unfinished house, the particular way the Mad Hatter's voice shifts when the story grows darker, those details are what people carry, and those same details are what make the possibility of new work feel personal rather than abstract. The years between the fifth Pirates film and this latest statement were not empty. Johnny kept creating. He appeared in international productions. He directed. He returned to music with the Hollywood Vampires. The craft continued even when the largest studio doors remained closed. The public record of the trial is available for anyone who wishes to read the transcripts and the jury's conclusions. The professional consequences that followed are also part of the record. Yet the work itself never fully stopped, and the audience that stayed never fully left. The Ebenezer Project marks a clear return to a major Hollywood release. The November 13th opening is set. The cast includes names that signal serious intention. The tone of the trailer suggests a version of the classic story that refuses to soften the edges. Johnny Scrooge is not a cartoon miser. The performance already visible in the footage carries the weight of a man who has built walls and is about to meet the consequences of those walls. That kind of layered work is what fans have come to expect and what they continue to hope for whenever a new project appears. The Bruckheimer comments arrive against that backdrop. They do not erase the intervening years. They simply place a concrete statement into the present. The planning is happening. The preference of the producer who has been with the franchise from the beginning is clear. For people who have followed every development, the effect is immediate. Some describe sitting still for several minutes after reading the words. Others describe calling a friend who shares the same long attachment to the character. A few have written that the news feels like the closing of a circle they were not certain would ever close. None of those reactions require exaggeration. They are the natural result of time spent waiting and of a sudden shift from uncertainty into the early stages of possibility. Johnny has never asked for pity, and the fans who remain do not offer it. What they offer is attention to the work and a willingness to show up when the work returns. The tears some are sharing today are not about perfection. They are about continuity. The same person who once walked into a Disney audition with a very different idea of how a pirate should move is still the person whose name is being spoken in planning meetings for the next chapter. The character that began as an experiment in physical comedy and quiet observation is still the character people hope to see again. That continuity is rare in an industry that moves quickly from one cycle to the next. When it appears, it tends to land with quiet force. The update itself is limited. No script has been locked. No start date has been announced. No official Disney confirmation has been issued. Yet the producer's words are on the record, and they point in a direction many had stopped allowing themselves to expect. In the hours since the exclusive circulated, the responses have stayed remarkably consistent. People are not claiming victory. They are simply acknowledging that a door that felt closed for a long time has been described as opened by someone with the authority to open it. That acknowledgement carries its own emotional charge. For some, the charge arrives as tears. For others, it arrives as a long exhale. For still others, it arrives as the sudden urge to rewatch the earlier films with fresh attention. All of those responses belong to the same root. The work mattered. The character mattered. The person who created the character remained present, even when the largest stages were temporarily unavailable. Now, a producer who has every reason to speak carefully has chosen to speak clearly. The rest of the process will take its own time. Scripts will be written and rewritten. Schedules will be negotiated. The practical realities of a large studio production will assert themselves. None of that diminishes the simple fact of the statement that exists today. Johnny Depp's return as Jack Sparrow is being planned. If it is up to Jerry Bruckheimer, the character will be there. Fans who have carried the films through quieter years are allowed to feel the weight of those sentences. They are allowed to sit with the feeling without needing to turn it into performance. The honesty of the reaction is part of what makes it believable. No one is claiming the entire future is settled. They are simply recognizing that after a long stretch of silence, a voice with real connection to the franchise has spoken, and the words point toward the possibility so many kept quietly alive. That recognition is enough to bring tears to people who never expected to cry over a producer interview. The tears are not about the man becoming larger than life. They are about the work continuing and about the particular way this work has stayed woven into ordinary lives. The same ordinary lives that once found something unexpected and lasting inside a character who should have been impossible to take seriously and yet somehow became impossible to forget. The recognition that a producer with real authority has spoken so directly continues to settle across the community of people who never stopped, watching for any sign that the character might return. The longer the statement sits in public view, the more the private stories begin to. Surfacing quiet messages and late-night posts that reveal how deeply, though, films and the performances threaded themselves into ordinary days. Some describe the exact theater seat where they first saw the block pearl cut through fog and felt something shift in the way they understood what a movie character could be. Others talk about the years when life grew heavy and the same scene still managed to produce a smile that felt earned rather than forced. A parent writes about sitting with a child who is now the same age they were when the first film arrived and watching the recognition appear on a younger face. These are not dramatic declarations. They are small, accurate memories that rise because the possibility of new work has been named out loud. The tears that accompany some of those memories are the natural result of time and attention rather than any sudden change in the man himself. Johnny Depp has never presented himself as larger than the roles. In the interviews that remain available, he has spoken about the necessity of disappearing into the work and about the danger of treating any performance as a personal statement. That approach is visible across decades of choices, the physical transformation that turns a recognizable face into something audiences accept without question, the vocal shifts that never feel like imitation, the willingness to let silence carry as much weight as dialogue. Those habits are what fans return to when they explain why the latest update lands with such force. The Bruckheimer comments do not invent a new version of the actor. They simply reopen a door that many have begun to treat as permanently closed. The practical realities remain unchanged. A screenplay still needs to reach the point where every key participant feels the material is strong enough. Schedules must align. The studio must commit resources on a scale that matches the earlier films. None of those steps are guaranteed by a single interview, yet the fact that the producer who has guided every previous chapter is willing to state his preference so plainly changes the texture of the waiting. The waiting itself has never been empty. While the largest franchise remained quiet, Johnny continued to work in ways that kept the craft visible, the independent film he directed, the international productions that asked for different kinds of presence, the music that returned him to stages where the only requirement was the ability to play and listen. Each of those efforts existed without the protective layer of a major studio machine, and each of them required the same attention to detail that once shaped Jack Sparrow. Fans who follow those projects often describe a particular kind of loyalty that does not need constant blockbuster confirmation. They watch because the work continued and because the person doing the work still seemed present inside it. The public record of the legal proceedings is available to anyone who chooses to examine it. The jury's findings and the damages awarded are facts that sit in the open. The professional consequences that followed are also part of the documented history. Yet the decision to keep creating after those consequences arrived is equally part of the record. That decision is what allows the current moment to feel like continuity rather than reinvention. The Ebenezer Project sits inside that continuity. The decision to take on a classic story that has been told many times and to approach it with a darker, more interior tone reflects the same interest in characters who carry complicated interior lives. The trailer footage already shows the care that goes into the physical transformation. The gray hair, the altered nose, the posture of a man who has spent years building defenses against the world. The single line delivered to camera carries both the character's voice and the quiet acknowledgement that a long absence has ended. The Comic-Con appearance that followed the trailer release added another layer of direct contact. People who had dressed as earlier characters found themselves standing a few feet from the actor who originated them, now fully inside a new role. The exchanges that happened on the street were brief and unscripted, a comment about jobs and spare time, a raised eyebrow. The kind of small theatrical moment that feels spontaneous because it is. Those moments do not rewrite history. They simply add another chapter in which the work is visible again. The Bruckheimer statement arrives against that backdrop of renewed visibility. It does not claim that every obstacle has disappeared. It simply places a clear preference on the public record. For fans who have spent years reading between the lines of studio silence, the difference between silence and a named preference is substantial. The emotional response that follows is therefore not about claiming an outcome that has not yet occurred. It is about acknowledging that the conversation has moved from speculation into the early stages of concrete planning. That acknowledgement allows people to revisit the earlier films with a different kind of attention. Scenes that once felt finished now sit beside the possibility of continuation. The particular way Jack Sparrow moves through a crowded marketplace, the quiet calculation behind the apparent chaos, the loyalty that appears in unexpected places. Those details regain a sense of ongoing life rather than closed history. The tears some fans describe when they watch those scenes again are the product of that shift. They are not tears of loss. They are tears that arrive when something long held in memory suddenly feels capable of growing. The industry itself rarely offers such clear signals. Franchises move on, actors are replaced, The practical machinery of large productions favors whatever combination of talent and timing appears most efficient. When a producer who has lived inside that machinery for decades chooses to speak in favor of continuity, the statement carries weight precisely because it runs against the usual momentum. The weight is what people are feeling, the weight of years spent assuming the door had closed, the weight of realizing the door is being described as open by someone with the authority to keep it open. The personal stories that rise in response to that weight are as varied as the people who tell them. A nurse who played the films on quiet night shifts, a teacher who used certain scenes to talk about loyalty and consequence with students, a person recovering from illness who found the humor still able to cut through the heaviness of treatment days. None of those stories require the actor to be perfect. They require only that the work remained available and that the person who made the work continued to treat it with seriousness. That seriousness is what fans continue to trust. It is visible in the way Johnny has spoken about the responsibility of carrying a character across multiple films. It is visible in the physical commitment that turns a recognizable face into something audiences accept without hesitation. It is visible in the choice to return to a major studio project with Ebenezer rather than remaining only in smaller independent spaces. The same seriousness is what makes the current update feel trustworthy. Bruckheimer is not selling a finished product. He is describing a direction of planning and stating a personal preference. The honesty of that limited claim is part of why the reaction remains grounded. People are not inventing contracts that do not exist. They are simply allowing themselves to feel the shift from silence into speech. The shift is enough to produce tears in those who have carried the films through quieter seasons. The tears are not a demand for the future to unfold in any particular way. They are a recognition that the past work still matters and that the possibility of future work has been given a public voice. That recognition sits alongside the practical understanding that many steps remain. The script must satisfy the people who will have to live inside it for months of filming. The business arrangements must align. The timing must fit around other commitments. None of those realities are erased by a single interview, yet the interview itself exists and the words inside it are clear. Johnny Depp's return as Jack Sparrow is being planned. If the decision rests with Jerry Bruckheimer, the character will be present. For the people who never stopped hoping that sentence would one day be spoken, the emotional impact is immediate and personal. It arrives in the form of quiet tears and long messages and the sudden urge to watch the earlier films again with the knowledge that the story might not be finished. The knowledge is limited. The feeling is not. The feeling is the accumulated result of years of attention paid to work that never asked for constant applause and yet somehow continued to earn it. That attention is what the current moment honors. It does not require exaggeration. It requires only the willingness to sit with the fact that a door once treated as closed has been described as open by a voice that carries real history with the franchise. The rest of the process will unfold at its own pace. The emotional truth of the present is already available. Fans who feel the weight of that truth are simply responding to the continuity they have always valued. The continuity of craft, the continuity of character, the continuity of a performer who has treated the work as something worth returning to even when the largest stages were temporarily unavailable. That continuity is what makes the tears understandable. They are not about perfection. They are about the quiet persistence of something that still feels alive. If this update left you sitting with the same quiet weight so many others are feeling right now, then you are not alone. The words from Jerry Bruckheimer are public record, and the emotion that followed them is real. Take a moment and leave a comment with the first pirate's memory that comes to mind or the exact feeling that rose when you read the news. Share this with someone who stayed through the quiet years so they know the conversation is still alive. The planning is only beginning and the story is still unfolding. Stay close for whatever comes next and keep the work in the center of the conversation where it belongs.